The show's about to start, guys. Hurry up, let's get in. Is that Gina? Where's Gina? Gina's gonna be here. Gina's gonna be here, guys. I promise. Who is here for Gina? Who's here for You Be You Leave? I think I just heard Gina has arrived. Look, that's her in the red dress. And there she goes, already stealing the show.
Is that your seat? Over here, Mama, I'm over here. Oh my God, is that Gina? Is that Gina Ballarin? That's Gina Ballarin! We love you, Gina! Ladies and gentlemen, You Be You Live is proud to present the incomparable Gina Ballarin! Gina Ballarin! Gina Ballarin! You go girl, you go girl. Gina Ballarin, change the world, change the world. Gina Ballarin, you go girl, you go girl. Step on the stage, let your story unfurl. Hearts ignite when she takes the floor. Hearts ignite when she floors. Her words take flight. They open doors. From the ballroom to the crowd. In the night. Gina Ballarin makes the message ignite. Gina Ballarin, you go girl, you go girl. Gina Ballarin, Gina Ballarin, step on the stage. Let your story unfurl. She don't stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to You Be You Live. I am William Rochelle, and you can call me Phil. And I am with Gina.
Woo!
So how do you pronounce your last name?
I'm just waiting for the crowd to finish loving me because this is like the biggest hype music I've ever had, Bill.
Oh, wait till you hear the end.
So it's Gina Ballarin. So it's not
Ballarin. Okay.
Ballarin.
Okay. So we will get that corrected for the next voiceover. And we'll go live. I even messed up my own because it said You Be You Leave, I think, either on this one or the other one. So I've had all sorts of technical difficulties this morning.
You know, this in Australia they call it me Gina Ballarin because they emphasize the second syllable for some strange reason. But if you think of Gina Ballerina, which of course I have been in the past, then it's easy to get it right. But hey, Bill, you can call me whatever you like as long as we're here having this chat.
There we go. So Gina and I belong to the same group, which will, throw a shout out to the Linkability group or network. And a couple of things have occurred since last week. I had a challenge, and I really want people to listen because I consistently talk about how to overcome the negatives and how to be your best self and how to live authentically. And I recognized that when I am on the other side of the table, I don't take my own advice. So I had blown this interview.
Serious face now, while Bill is checking out his mic. Okay, I've lost you there for a sec, mate. I can't hear you for some reason. I hope the people and the rest of the audience can hear you because I can't. Where you gone, Bill? Where you gone? This is the beauty about being live, is that sometimes things go a little bit wonky and you know that you can work it out behind the scenes because you've got a co-host who's got your back. And while Bill is trying to get his mic up and running again, I'm just going to share with you that we've got, there we go, Bill.
Okay.
You're back in.
Okay.
Hey.
No, but go ahead. I have a brilliant co-host today.
I was going to share with you that Bill and I are part of this linkability group run by Linaire Johnston. And Linaire has been called the best thing that's happened to LinkedIn since sliced bread. No, she's been called that by me. But but she's also been called the #1 LinkedIn expert in New Zealand. And I don't know about anyone else, but she keeps delivering and she keeps standing out. And she's just does it with such humility and such grace and such humanness. So she brings people together, brings special people together. And I am so privileged to have this conversation with Bill. And Bill was incredibly brave last week. And this is the story of how brave he was. So let's hear more
Okay.
about that, shall we?
Well, you know, it. Sorry, and I I wrote a post about it recently. I said, "No, I've always been on the other side of the table, and for most jobs, I've stayed there anywhere from 6 to 9 years. So think about, I've only really had to interview for a job, like 4 times,
That's
maybe.
hard.
Yeah, and so getting in, and some of my jobs have been poached. So people taking me from one job to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So being in that seat of the interviewee, I lose it. And when I say I lose it, and a lot of you guys are going to say, but you speak to people every day. I can talk to Gina right now. This is my show. I can ask her any question I want, and and the only person that gets judged about how they do on this show is me. So I don't have to prove anything to myself.
Look, I don't know, Bill. Everyone gets judged when you're in the public domain, right? When you're in the face in front of someone. And the fact of the matter is that we're all judging people every second of the day. It's how we make decisions. But by the same
Hmm.
token, we're probably judging ourselves far more than we're judging other people. And that's kind of the point that, if you're in your own domain, you're comfortable. As
Yes.
soon as you step out of your domain, you're not. And quite frankly, doing a job interview that you haven't done very often in your life before is going to be a context in which you don't excel, because no matter how good you are at every aspect of your life, you cannot be perfect at something that you only do a handful of times.
Right. And in that same vein, you know, we're never too big to grow. And to say, there's no such thing as failing, because we're always learning. Every time we do anything, even if we mess up, we're one phase closer to where we need to be. And trial and error is what gets us to where we need to be. But I knew that this is not my wheelhouse, and I said it out loud. And Linaire, Gina, and Martin stepped up right away. And I had Martin on last week, Martin Stark, and everyone out there. Martin Stark is home today. He had a little issue, if you know Martin, but he's home and he's fine and he's good. And we'll talk about that later. But he's an exceptional portrait of courage and
Absolutely.
a fearless man. And we all fear things, but he kind of takes it straight on. One of the
Yeah,
things,
he calls himself the courage champion. And I think he is a testament to that. You can't just call yourself the courage champion without having gone through stuff that requires you to be courageous.
yes, but he's also a calming spirit. Have you had a private conversation with him?
I've met him in person, but with some other people, and we were kind of all a little bit nervous because we'd never, had any actual get-togethers. So no, Martin, this is a call for you and me. We need to have a one-to-one sometime, mate.
It's so interesting. I'm such a blah type of spirit, and and he's very calming, and it's a great energy to balance me out. So I think we'll be really good friends. But one of the things that made me say, "Hey, I really want to get Gina on the show," and also made me say I really want to work with Gina, is when you and I had our Zoom meeting for 30 minutes. You looked at me on the Zoom call with such confidence, and then you asked me some very poignant questions. And what in that 30-minute call, what you brought out of me were things that I never recognized. And the conversation went like this, everyone. I'd like to do an hour and a half with you. And I said, I think I'd like to do that as well. And then we haven't talked since. We're going to talk after this to discuss, the logistics and all that great stuff. But kind of let's talk through live and on air what the process is like and what you noticed in me in that moment of vulnerability.
So I'm the CEO's voice, and I specialize in helping people bring their best selves to the world. And the people I love to help the most are those with big brains, big hearts, and big balls. And I don't mean that they have to be male. I mean that they have to be brave. They have to be at a stage in their life where they're tired of accepting the status quo, whatever that might be. And they need something to change the way they show up in the world. And so when Bill very, very bravely said, look, guys, I screwed up this interview. I need some help. My first instinct was, Bill, I can help you because I see him. And this is what happens as part of the process. People have to be willing to be seen. And so I've always had this special gift that's kind of a blessing and a curse. And I can see when people are hiding their true selves. I can't see what their true selves are, but I can see that they're hiding. And it makes some people feel incredibly comfortable around me when they're authentic, when they're comfortable with who they are. I mean, even if they're going through a struggle, they're still in that mindset of I am who I am. But unfortunately, it works the other way around when people are not comfortable with who they are. And so there are some people who have lived their life by illusion. And when we talk and they know that I can scratch beneath that surface and I can actually say, I see you, I see the real you, they don't necessarily want me to see the real you.
Hold on for a second. So that was deep. People live their lives by illusion. Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
So stop. Go into that. You can't just over it.
I'll go into that by giving an example, but first, I'm actually a tiny little bit of an expert in the art of illusion because I've spent many years on stage. And so, of course, what happens on stage is you're putting on a persona, you're putting on a performance, you've got the hair and you've got the makeup and you've got the outfit. And in my case, I've been on stage as a TEDx performer, but I've also been on stage as a dancer. And the funny thing is I've learned so much about the art of verbal performance through non-verbal performance that it is truly fascinating. But I was also on stage, believe it or not, as a magician's assistant. So he did illusions. One of the illusions that we did together was he stuck flaming swords through me. Now this is, it is an illusion. He didn't really stick flaming swords through me, but it looks like that. And that's how a lot of people live their lives. You've got to play by the rules. And they're not the rules that you make up, right? They're the rules that society determines. How are you as an adult? How are you as a parent? How are you as a citizen? How are you as a representative of party A or B, of group A or B? But what ends up happening is if we live our lives in a context where we are always putting on a performance or putting on a presentation, not just for ourselves, but for the people around us, for those we love, then what ends up happening is we almost create two versions of ourselves. Now, about a year ago, I did a presentation called I'm Nobody. And it was raw and it was vulnerable and it was like a confession session almost live on stage. And in that process, I realized that I'm tired of being an illusion. I'm tired of showing up for other people. But it is hard, Bill. It is hard because we have so many expectations of us all the time. And yeah, some of them are good and right and proper. If there's a stoplight or traffic light, you stop. That's how society works. It's not an illusion. You can't just pretend that a red light means go. But it also means that in our... Well, yes, I think we all have at some point in time. But what we also do is we don't necessarily show up as who we are. And that is a tricky one because how do you make different flavors of yourself. So my analogy of authenticity is that for me, it's like a chocolate piñata. So a piñata, obviously, of course, is that thing that hangs like an animal shape, usually, that hangs from a ceiling at a kid's party, and the kids smash it, and then what falls out is like candy and treats and chocolates and things like that. And for me, if you imagine that to be authentic is to be the same on the outside as on the inside. And so your chocolateness is who the shell is, right? But also what's going on in the center. Now, sometimes in the center, we can be bitter and dark, but we're still chocolate. And sometimes on the inside, we are smushy and oozy. And sometimes on the inside, we're a little bit too much boozy at the center, right? Who of us haven't had those moments? But the fact of the matter is that if you're chocolate all the way through, you can have different flavors, you can have different varieties. Some days you can be a bit nutty, some days you can be a bit too sweet. What do we show to the world? And that ability to be ourselves, to show the world different flavors of ourselves, is what I think differentiates us from the bots. You know, this is how we remain human, that we're not pretending to be something else. But only in the last few years have I realized that that vulnerability doesn't just take courage. It actually takes a kind of bloody mindedness and that determination to say, yes, I can be different flavors of myself and I can tailor which is appropriate for the moment that I'm in. I'm not going to show up on this show here with you, Bill, in a skimpy top and, you know, bright pink hair, because that's not me. But I will show up as hopefully the wisdom and depth that I bring to all conversations, which is to say my process is to see the you that you're ready to share with the world. And that requires vulnerability. But I always ask people, when I start with a session with them, are you willing to be brutally honest?
You did.
And when you are brutally honest, that's when things change.
You know what? I think I said to you, one of the problems I have is when I'm doing my podcast, I know who I am and I know who people are coming in to see. But when I'm interviewing, and I'm going to keep saying this because it's true and I believe in manifestation, but I've had such a brilliant career and I'm so proud of it. And it's so diverse that I'm always trying to figure out, who do they want to show up? Do I show up as a CEO? Do I show up as the mastermind in call center operations or overall global operations? And that's where I get stuck because there's so much to my story. And I know, and there's been all these weird things that have happened over the past 30 years. And I was telling this to, I think, Martin, and he said, yeah, but you need to find the relatable story. You know,
He's right.
you need to find the relatable one. Cause I would, you know, I've had some doozies, you know, people that I've had to bring back, you know, from other countries that passed away. You know, it's like I've dealt with some doozies and, you know, with the FBI and trying to, it's been a lot. It hasn't been just basic and the efforts that both I and my team and I made prevented any negativity against the brand. And that's why it was featured in Forbes as brand differentiating customer service. It went from a call center to a profit center because we understood how we impacted the brand. However, when you have all these great things to pull from, what's relatable? And that's also where I get kind of.
This is where coaching overlaps with performance. And this is what happens in job interviews is you want to put the best version of yourself forward. So if you think about all of your job experiences being like a shelf of chocolate behind you, confectionery, which I think is appropriate for the context that we're talking about, what happens is that you need to give the right version of yourself. So Michael Blanc says something about being a go-giver, and he's right. If you are able to give the version of yourself authentically, transparently, honestly, integrity. It's a viable solution. Yes, Mike is absolutely right, but which version of yourself? So that's why I say that authenticity is not about being completely chocolate. You can't be only one flavor, because no one is only one flavor. We are in ourselves multitudes. We are the family member, we are the friend, we are the worker, we are the employee. And in some fortunate cases like Bill, we are also the CEO, we are also the head of the call center, we are also the leader. But what happens in that moment when you're talking to someone in an interview, and this is, by the way, the same in any context, whether you're on stage, whether you're performing in front of a live TV audience, whether you're on radio, whether you're turning up on a podcast, is that you are giving a flavor that is relevant to your audience. And so in a job interview, the most important thing you'd think is about giving the right answers to the questions. Yes? No, that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is to understand, what are they actually looking for? So my husband has nailed almost every single job interview he's ever done.
Let me talk to him.
Yeah, you should talk to him. But part of the reason he's so good at it is because he is looking at 3 steps down the line, not just what am I answering now, but if I answer this, what is their next question going to be and how are they likely to respond to that? So you kind of need to understand a little bit about the personalities in the room. So for example, if you're talking with a C-level executive, so CEO, CTO, CFO, whatever, in the room with you when you're interviewing, they probably expect and appreciate and respect short answers. They probably expect and appreciate the truth. They probably respect and appreciate numbers, facts and stats, right? If you're talking to an HR person, they're probably more likely to respond to stories. But then again, don't forget, facts tell, but stories sell. So if you think about any good piece of writing and any good answer in an interview is to be able to analyze the question. What are they really asking? And then think about, how can I tell them something that's going to add value to their lives? With any audience, the answer is always, what's going to be of the greatest value to them? Now, it feels tricky in an interview because you feel so vulnerable. You feel like, oh, they got to pick me. But at the end of the day, it's got to be about, how are you helping them help their people? And their people are their organization. Now, if you've done your homework, and I know Bill will have done his homework, and whoever is attending an interview who is fortunate enough to get actual interviews in this day and age, which are more rare than you'd think, you may feel like you're on display, but actually all they're really trying to do is matchmake you. They want to matchmake your values. They want to matchmake your skills and experience. They want to check, they're also making sure that what you've said on your CV is in fact what you've done. And you may have been in Forbes, but that doesn't mean that the version of you that was in Forbes is the version of you that still exists today. And so every question that they're asking you, they're asking on multiple levels. And that feels incredibly scary. So Brandon asks, what's my tip for making complex ideas simple and memorable? It's a great question. Thank you, Brandon. There's a chapter in my book, and the book's called The Secret Army: Leadership, Marketing, and the Power of People. And
You want to bring it closer so people can see it?
I will. Yeah. Here we go. Check it out. It's on Amazon. You can get a copy almost anywhere in the world. And thank you, Bill.
You're
The
welcome.
beautiful thing about this chapter is that we talk about the concept of simplify and amplify. And it actually comes back to something I learned when I was doing drama. Yes, I studied drama at university. Finally, 20 years later, it's coming useful. But the principle is this. I was performing on stage, and I went to a university where leaders learn. And that means that you don't learn to become a follower. You learn to become a leader. And in that context, I really wanted to perform. I wanted to be a ballerina on stage, Gina ballerina. And the lecturer kind of criticized my dance performance because she said, Gina, it's not enough. I'm like, what do you mean it's not enough? It's always been enough. I've always been celebrated, like you have been, Bill, for doing what I do. She said, I don't want to see the surface. Just I want to scratch beneath it. She says, you've got to go back to what makes it memorable and then scratch the surface beneath that. And you've got to go back to what makes it essential. Simplify, simplify, simplify until you get to that nugget of truth, that kernel of essentialness. And then you amplify. So simplify and amplify. And that applies in any context. Let's say I want to tell you about this exciting thing that I'm selling. Okay, I'm selling my services. I can tell you about the benefits for you, and I should. I can tell you about the unique selling points, USPs, and I should. But really, at the end of the day, it's got to be about what is that one thing that will be different as a result of you working with me. Simplify it to that, and then amplify it in the context of the person that you're talking to. What does it mean to them?
Makes sense. And that was a almost perfect answer. I don't believe in perfection.
Thanks, Bill.
So Kinga, who I met recently on, I think she was on Jackie's show. I don't remember. Sorry, Kinga. Um, asked this question. The reason why I highlighted it
Yeah.
is because this is where I believe I get stuck. So we talked about my titles, which are really irrelevant. It's really the work that I've done. And I'm a startup person who has taken has created the blueprint. I usually go into businesses that need to be turned around. And I've gone from $4 billion businesses to startups. And where I run into a problem is that I am a roll up the sleeves, work shoulder to shoulder, lead from behind while I push everybody up type of leader. And I think I say this, but I've never said it directly, where I try to figure out who's supposed to show up, because there comes a strength behind everything that I've done.
Yeah.
But the way that I've done it, I haven't sat on top of the team. I sat beneath the team and lifted them up, and I'm always guiding them. So I am very much not high maintenance, but in speaking to people and speaking about my accomplishments, that's again who's supposed to show up, because I have done all these things. How
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
how do you how do you
Bill, this is
how do
not
you
about
speak on
you.
that?
This is the thing that you forget. It's not about you. It's about them.
Okay.
It's always about them. It is always about what results are you going to give? How are you going to serve? So if Kinga asks, will you be high maintenance? The fact of your persona, which is what you put out when you're being Bill, is that they anticipate that there is a lot of personality there. Therefore, they anticipate that that will be high maintenance. Look, I've been turned down for jobs. I didn't even know I was being turned down at the time, by the way.
So wait, so you think that I would be high maintenance?
No, I think that your persona indicates that you would be high maintenance, because Bill, when he's the star of the show, when he's the big, larger than life personality,
Really?
is different to the Bill behind the scenes. Now, as you speak about what you do, I see servant leadership across everything. I see the fact that you cannot have achieved what you achieved without being a servant leader.
Yes.
The definition of a servant leader is someone who steps behind while, as you said, lifting other people up. But the unfortunate thing is the nature of a personality that tends to want to be in front of the stage, that wants to be in front of a camera, is that they anticipate you're going to be a prima donna. And I was thinking about this earlier because you're doing this incredible show that people are gravitating towards, that we love, that we want to come back for more and more and more. And how does this play in the world of a traditional organization? And maybe this is the issue, Bill. You're not a traditional organization kind of guy. Because if they're prepared to take you on, they need to be prepared to have their world shaken just a little bit.
Well, there are two things can be true at once. Okay, so right now
Okay.
you're going to see the first argument between me and Gina. So you're kind of right. On one hand, you're kind of right. So most of the time when people hire me, they're hiring me because they need change.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they know that they need change. So they hire me and then they leave me alone. They're just like, I don't know how to do this, just do it. I am not high maintenance, but if I do come on board, definitely know that we're going to be looking at every aspect of that operation to make sure that it is operationally sound, that there are no leaks, that there's not a better way that we can do things, that we're not going to strive to be, we're not going to plan our work around today. We're going to solidify today, make sure there are no holes, and work 5 years out. Because if we are only working for today, then in 5 years we're going to be lost. So I'm doing both at the same time, right? So there will be change, and I'm really good at what I do. I can walk. You see the difference in the body language?
Yes, I can. And that's something, just for the audience here, that's something that Bill and I talked about already. And it's something that you can do too, whoever you are listening in. Be aware that the more nerves and tension you have, the more the distance between your ears and your shoulders gets smaller. So one of the things to do whenever you're in a tense situation is to force yourself to drop your shoulders. See, I got inches there, literally.
But I thought that I thought I seemed more confident when I was talking just now.
Yes, you did. But what also happened is that your arms loosened up. And so it doesn't matter if your shoulders are rising when you're talking. It matters if your
Okay.
shoulders are rising when you're stressed. And what a lot of people do is they put their arms on the desk. And so they end up looking like this, like a little hunchback. But
Yeah.
the other thing that happens is your shoulders open out. So from a speaking perspective, if you have more lung capacity, you can take deeper breaths and therefore you can calm yourself. And the more you hunch over, the more you squash your diaphragm. Literally try it. You can feel it. Right? Have you got a lot more air? Have you got more air if you're actually opening your diaphragm, or have you got more air if you're contracting?
No,
Obviously.
you're right. Okay.
Yeah. And so what happens when Bill is talking is he is giving himself the freedom and flexibility to be able to breathe and articulate. But I want to go back to the content of what you were saying there, Bill, and the concept of job interviews. Because it's very clear from the way that you describe what you're going to do that you're a maverick, but that you can also make change happen, that you'll bring people along for the journey. It depends who you're talking to in that interview. And let's be honest, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room here, which is that we live in troubled times. And there are circumstances in which people kind of want to hide a little bit. You want to back off. You want to just keep yourself safe. And sometimes in that trying to keep yourself safe, it means that organizations don't necessarily they don't want to grow. They don't want to hire innovators. They would want to hire people who are going to challenge the status quo. My gut tells me that the place for you, Bill, is in entrepreneurial type organizations where you can almost be the internal innovators. I've heard it referred to as entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. So you're an entrepreneur at heart, but you sit best in a context where you can innovate with other people and grow them. And then ironically, that's really the point of the secret army, is that you're not innovating for yourself, you're innovating with other people. And your secret army is the generals, obviously, of the army. So you know the people who are the leaders in name and in title. And of course, your employees, which are who the people that Bill brings together in order to make change. But that there's a third group of your secret army, and this is why Bill was in a context of being lauded in a magazine that we all have heard the name of, because it's also your customers. Your customers are the really, really important part of that. So maybe one way of thinking about this is the next time you're in an interview, don't just think about what you do for the organization. Think of it as one step further. Now, in my 20 years in marketing, this has been one of the things that stood me in greatest stead, is to be able to think, not what's the benefit for my customer, but what's the benefit for my customer's customer. Right. And so if we think about, it's not about what I did, it's about what was the result of what I did. And ultimately, what was the result to the customer? And how did that change the world in some small or big way?
Right. So I'm watching the comments in the live, and I'm also looking. There's like over 400 people here right now. Can you see that number?
No, I'm not even on LinkedIn because my sound's doing a little bit weird. So every now and then I see the comments pop up, and it's great to see this. Yeah. Corporations don't care about 5 years out; they care about this quarter, says Michael.
So, well, what I was going to say to Mike is, I politely disagree with that. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So when I gave my example, and maybe I didn't make it clear to Gina, I said we would fix the holes immediately to make sure that the product is stable, and we would make sure that it's good for now. That means we're going to make sure that what we're working on now is suffice for this moment, And then we're going to work on improving over the next 5 years.
You
And
know what I
so,
love about the way you just did that there, Bill? Sorry to interrupt you. Is that you spoke with such gravitas. Now, gravitas is a really interesting word. I used it with my client last week. They're Italian.
so what does that mean?
They don't know what the word gravitas means, and it's obviously not used very often. So, effectively, if you think of it as authority, as kind of like trustworthiness, they call it gravitas is referred to as dignity, seriousness, or solemnity of manner, which actually kind of sounds a little bit overwhelming, doesn't it? But maybe the word I'm looking for is authority. As you were talking about that, you didn't necessarily realize, but I noticed that you dropped the tone of your voice. Okay, so I can speak up like this, or I can speak down like this. Which one commands more authority and more respect? And then as you talk, when you bring out examples, if you're waving around your arms around a lot, and I've had to train myself to do this less, people tend to think that you are all over the place, which is interesting. So when you can slow down your response and you can slow down your arm movements, make them meaningful, it immediately conveys confidence and conviction. And in a context where you are comfortable, that ability to slow down, to lower your register, all of a sudden it does something special. It brings people in. It makes them feel comfortable and it makes them feel welcome.
So do you want to know what the difference was between the?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's my management style. So when Michael put something out there, the first thing that I want to do with my team is to acknowledge it. I see what you're saying, but let me kind of explain to you why I said something different. So I'm not ever knocking someone on the head. What a dumb question, because it wasn't. It was through his lens of what companies are looking for, right? So it was a very great response, but this is why I differ with it. And so if you're leading a team, you have to think to yourself before you open your mouth, what result do you want? And everyone gets encouraged differently.
Mm-hmm.
So some people I can say, yeah, okay, whatever. That made no sense. We're gonna do this. And other people you need to say, that was really, really worth 30 seconds that I just took out of my day that I'll never get back. But here's my response. No, I'm just joking, people. No, but other people need the same message and the motivation, but it needs to come from a different voice or a different framing so that they can jump on board.
Now, that is true. And you've demonstrated admirable, again, leadership qualities in terms of the idea of individual leadership traits, understanding how you're going to get the best out of your people. But I think perhaps the challenge is to identify what do you want to get the best out of your interviewer? Because they have to be able to see not only that you connect with your team and the results at the end of the day, but how can you connect with them? So, yeah, Mike is saying some things about the state of the market that I don't think he's wrong about. I think the nature of organizations is that we tend to look more month on month, quarter on quarter than we have in the past, perhaps. And that's to the detriment of the organization. And sometimes it means that inspirational leaders or those who are visionary can be a challenge for those who are literally looking just quarter on quarter.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, in some context, your ability, perhaps your obsession with seeing the future, because you can't not, because for you it's so natural to see it. And the question is, how can you help people understand that timeline? Like, what happens now, what happens later, and what is the ultimate result?
Right.
And to think about how are they framing that question. So are they asking, Bill, what are you going to do in 5 years? Then your obvious answer is what's happening in 5 years' time. If they go, Bill, what do you need to change now? You can set this context. And this goes to a question that someone here is asking. David Darnell is saying, that was not the one I wanted to look at. There was someone asked about storytelling. How can there we go. There's David's question. How can introverts improve their storytelling skills? Do you know, David, one of my favorite people to work with is introverts because they have the most beautiful stories. They just don't necessarily feel like they have the right to put that story out into the world. And so really, the natural process of an introverted person, and believe it or not, I am in fact an ambivert. I get my energy from being alone, but I give my energy away when I'm with people. Improving your storytelling skills is actually about being brave enough to think, what is the end here? One of the storytelling structures and techniques is to start with the end in mind. So let's go back to Bill's example of a story. And they'd say, what changes would you make, Bill, in 5 years' time? Or what changes would you make to our organization? And you stop, you consider it seriously and go, from my research, I can tell that your goal is to be X. In order to achieve X, I have demonstrated in the past that I was able to do A and B and C. Now, by doing A, B, and C, we were able to achieve that not in this time period, but in that time period. Let me ask you a question. Was this your expectation? How soon do you expect to solve this problem? And they'll be like, we don't know. But the reason that you ask a question back to the interviewer is to help them realize that this is a dialogue. And matchmaking doesn't just happen one way. You don't just go, oh, you're a perfect match for you. And this person goes, no, I'm not, run away. You got to be a perfect match for each other. And so I think part of going into an interview in a context is understanding, do they deserve me? Like, are they the right people for me? Just because they're the one that I've got to now doesn't necessarily mean that I want to have them. Like, they have to earn the right to hire me as much as I earn the right to be hired by them. And I think that changes the energy of your confidence going into that context.
Absolutely. Mike, and this is the last question we're going to take from him, not because they're bad, but because we're going to move on to other people. So I'm not going to answer that, because I think that right now the times in America are really different. And so, trying to explain this to thousands of people that are being fired right now,
yeah,
it doesn't make a lot of sense why a lot of people are being let go. And so I'm going to leave that alone. That seems like more of a political issue in America right now, somewhat. And then I didn't hear a 5-year response to the 5-year plan in corporate America. I'm not going to.
What I was trying to address is that you have a valid point that people are thinking short-termist, not long-termist. I think the challenge is that Bill does think long-term of necessity. He can't stop himself.
I think long-term and short-term.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I do is I walk in to stop the bleeding, because every company has something that's bleeding. And so that's the quarterly benefit that I bring in for the first quarter is we stop bleeding money. We get rid of the low-hanging fruit in any company. However, being on the forefront of emerging technologies in every company I've worked with, I haven't had the luxury of just thinking about today. I've had to think about 5 years out, because when I was working for Teleflora, we would bring in 250 people every single holiday, and we would train them for 2 weeks. So if you think 250 people times their hourly rate in a 2-week training before Christmas. So my job was to get it from 250, keep it there, but make it a 1-week training and get the same results. That was $100,000 in reduced overhead if you look at it throughout the years. It was a 6-figure savings by cutting it down to a week. After that, it's how do we get more business in and take it from 250 to a week and 150. So that's my 5-year attitude. How are we going to improve? What things are we going to put in place so that we can maintain our brand focus? We can maintain our internal customer service and our external customer service while evolving and meeting our customers where they're at. And I'm going to stop there for a second, because Martin would tell me pause.
And Martin is wise. You
Yes,
should
he
be
is.
pausing. Because what that does is it gives you an opportunity to observe the body language of the person that you're talking to, and to see how they're reacting, whether they're responding, and to give them a chance to ask you questions. Jackie says confidence is so important. She's absolutely right. But there is such a thing as overconfidence. Now, this is a challenge because how do people know that what you're saying is the truth? Well, you've got evidence to back it up, you've got references to back it up. But again, sometimes there is a risk that people think, well, it's too good to be true. So let's ask ourselves that question, right? Are people actually, do they want it? Do they know they need it? I mean, Bill, the question here is not what happened during one interview. The question is there an appetite for Bill, and where is that appetite for Bill? And I think that is the challenge. There is an appetite. Oh, yeah, I know where you're going. But what I mean is that desire to create change in an organization, that desire to stop the bleeding, to be able to put something in place that serves today's goals, tomorrow's goals, next week's goals. We talked about fear and the fact that fear makes people hide and protect themselves. There will be companies that have an appetite for growth. There will be companies that have an appetite for innovation. There are companies that know that they are wanting to fundamentally change what they do. It's just a question of finding the right match
Right.
between Bill, the servant leader, and the cultural context, which is making the people who employ servant leaders a little bit afraid right now.
So you said so much that hit me direct in my gut. Only because I've been in situations where, and I'll make this one short. I've been in situations where I've been hired by an owner of a company, and he didn't ask the president of the company, should he hire me? So I get hired. I'm reporting to the president, and the president's like, I don't want to give you anything. Who are you? So I'm past the stage in my career where I want to fight or argue or have someone be intimidated by me wanting to come in and make this a better place for all of us, to make this company a place where we can retire from. But as a leader, as someone who's managed companies, I recognize immediately that the owner, although he has all the power in the world, had no right bringing in a second in command without getting his first in command's buy-in on that. So it wasn't
100%.
it wasn't that person's, it wasn't the president's fault. All of a sudden, you know, the president gets, oh, this is going to be your second in command. This guy didn't even get a chance to talk to me, and I'm like, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
And so everyone thinks I'm a
Why would he
spy.
trust you? Yeah,
Right.
he didn't have buy-in.
Yeah.
Again, one of the fundamental leadership principles is if you want people to be able to get on board with what you're doing, they need to understand how and why it's going to happen. Think about Simon Sinek's start with why. You start with the why. So if he'd gone to his second in command and said, hey, listen, mate, what you're doing is amazing, but I've met this guy who I think is going to do X, Y, and Z. Will you give him a try? I'd really love to have him on board. You don't have to agree with everything he said because I really think he's brilliant. Just see how he goes. All of a sudden, dynamic shifted. He's
Yeah.
informed. He knows what the why is. Then he can go from the why to the what, and from the why to the how, and from the how to the what. And I think maybe this is the interesting challenge: as a build, as a start with a why kind of guy. That means you have to be in the context of where people are starting with why. Now, in challenging times, I think it's harder to find organizations that really are willing to be vulnerable. And I think there's a perception that if you are a kind of servant leader who's driven to make a difference, and they're going, but we just want someone to do the job. We don't want someone to change. Can we just sit and do what we've always done because it's safe?
I've had people say that to me. I literally have. And every time I've told them no. And every time, not only has the business grown, but that person that questioned me has grown and said he's appreciated or she's appreciated my leadership more than anyone else. And they've learned more under me than anyone else.
I'm not surprised, by the
Sorry,
way. I'm
guys.
not surprised by that at
I'm
all.
I'm a big storyteller. His name was Billy Navidad. And it was jdate.com and Christian Mingle. And Christian Mingle, Jdate, Zeus, we own 30 different dating sites. And Billy said, you know, I've seen a bunch of people come and go. Um, they don't like change around here. Don't rock the boat and you'll get a paycheck and you'll be fine. And I looked at him and I said, okay. And I rocked the boat. And before I knew it, I was running the company. And it was, but I didn't rock the boat and then throw him under it.
Yeah.
I rocked the boat and then I said, now watch and learn. And this is how you and I, are going to do this together. And then I made him my advocate. I made him my right hand, right? Because he was the one that was afraid of change. And
Absolutely.
he also had the ear of the uh not older in age, but some of the first people that came along. People fear and think that just because there's a new leader coming in, that he's going to get rid of all the old people. No, no. You guys are what made me want to come, because you guys have built something great. But let's take it to the next level together. So it's about making them feel comfortable, and it's not about coming in. And I don't come in with the staff and say, bang, we're going to make changes, and thunder strikes and everyone's heads roll. No, that's not how it happens. It happens through a united front. Um, and I think as we grow, I'm about to pause. I think as we grow in our confidence, we no longer need to wield a big stick to make change. We're able to do it through influence, through understanding and listening actively to what people are saying,
Yeah.
and then responding to it. Because some of it, like Billy Navidad, and I'm not afraid to say his name because this is a true story and he's doing very well. But some of it comes from fear.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to my job? No one's looked into my role.
Yeah.
So what does this mean?
So this is an important question, Bill, when you're being interviewed by someone. And I don't know how you know what they really want and how you know what they're really looking for, other than to do your homework and to find out about the company and the organization and their goals and read their annual reports and check out the LinkedIn profiles of all of the people who you're interviewing. The challenge, of course, is if you are a change maker and you're coming up against people who feel challenged by the nature of your personality, you can tell them, I'll bring you along for the ride, and you can share them the stories of the other people. But they may be a naysayer. At the end of the day, it depends who's making that decision. And I would honestly think that your next move is not to wait for stuff to come to you, but to go out to the people who you've already made a difference to and said to them, who do you know who needs my skills now? Who do you know who's making ripples in the world and wants to make bigger ripples? Or who do you know who started making ripples in the world and they're struggling? This is the kind of change that I want to make. Put me in touch with these people. Because those are your people, Bill. Those are the people who make a lasting difference. And to your earlier point, making a lasting difference doesn't necessarily have to be earth-shattering. It can be tiny, incremental little steps. And I'm going to take this back to how you present and perform and communicate with people. Start with the shoulders. Take your elbows off the table. Pause. Really look at people and give them the feeling that in that moment, they are the center of your universe.
Taking it all in, everybody. Are you guys all taking this in? What do you guys have questions for with Gina? Or does anyone have any questions for Gina?
There's
I'm
a nice question here, and I don't know if I can pronounce your name right, so apologies if I don't. Taitsha CM. Is organizational communications only confidential information inside companies? Here you go, Bill. You and I are reading the same thing. We're thinking the same thing. No, of course not. But it is an important part. communication is everything you say, it's everything you read, but it's also things you don't say and things that other people in an organization are saying. So never underestimate the power of the grapevine. This is very interesting because people can sense that difference between what management is communicating and what they're not saying. And often there's a world of difference when people are trying to hide stuff. And this is where it comes back to authenticity for me. Now, I know Bill, as a leader, would be the kind of person who goes, this is it. This is what's happening. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to give you any spin. Unfortunately, we live in an era where spin is king currently. So how do you, as a leader, make change in your organization? By giving people the most honest version that you can. I've seen this from both sides of the coin. Fortunately, I've never been in a situation where I've had to make people redundant or get rid of them. Because what happens when someone asks you a direct question and they go, are you going to make people redundant? You can't answer that. Even if you know that the redundancies are coming, you can't. What you can say is, we're going to give our best efforts to making sure that we can help you be the best versions of yourselves you can be. And things are going to change. Things always change. That's the nature of organizations. But what we can hold steadfast to is the stuff that brought us here in the first place. Why do we do what we do? How do we make a difference? Who do we serve? How can we bring and keep the best people that serve that path moving forward? Right? You notice that the rhetoric that I'm using there is very inclusive. It's very much about us. Because I'm in a position of leadership, assuming in this context, in an organization. But it's also about me trying to put into the mind of my audience, how can you make a difference? What is it that's still going to keep you wanting to come to work? Because as much as people have to go to work to earn an income, to keep the lights on, we also want to come to work because we're serving some sort of purpose. And that's the difference between someone who is a leader to keep the lights on or who is actually a leader who believes in serving something greater.
So that's me. Can I talk now?
Yeah.
Okay. So just because we're in different countries, and words have different meanings. So when you say redundant, do you mean that you're cross-training people?
Oh, sorry. It's a phrase. I was actually made redundant when I was living in the UK, and it means you're firing people effectively. You're downsizing.
Okay.
You're
All right.
getting rid of people out of the organization. It's a really tricky term because the word redundant literally means I am redundant. I am superfluous to requirements. I have no purpose in life. But in a technical term, what it means is that the role itself is no longer required for our organization. It's got nothing to do with you as a person. You just happen to be in that role, and we can no longer afford to employ all these people. And therefore, we are going to take that particular role and remove it out of the organization, which means that you will no longer be employed. Is that better?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that I was thinking in the right way, because I was thinking redundancy means in well, Mike knows this, in like server redundancy and server maintenance and stuff like that means you have more than one.
Yes, no, that's a good thing. That's a really good point, because in the server context, redundancy is good because it means you've got backups. No, in an employment context, redundancy as well. It depends what perspective you're looking at. It's good if you want to improve the bottom line because you can get rid of people, but it's bad if you're the human who's being made redundant.
Right. Because I one of the ways that I really affect change is that I don't believe in silos. So I believe in breaking down walls, and I believe that excuse me, people, I'm saying I a lot, but my philosophy is that if we cross train everyone, then you can go on a vacation and not come back to 2 weeks worth of work, right? We have other people that can do your job, or if you decide that you're going to quit, we have someone that knows how to do your job. So I almost never leave a business held hostage by one person. Meaning that's Natalie's job, and only Natalie knows how to do it. No,
Yeah.
everybody knows how to do Natalie's job so that Natalie can grow. Natalie's going to be our next director of X, but she can't be that if she's the only one that knows how to
Yeah.
do this. And so that's what I use to get people to come off of that's mine or that fear of being replaced. Is by creating a succession plan and then telling them how that helps them move up. Now, when
I
someone
think
asks me,
that is wise because it means that the organization benefits, but the individual benefits too. It
yes,
can be very scary for those who think
all the
that you
time,
are trying to take away their knowledge and their domain expertise, especially if they see their career as connected to that domain knowledge or expertise. Now, Bill, I don't know what your audience is expecting, whether they're like, oh, it's an hour, we're top of the hour, we're done now, or if we can keep going, because I can keep going as long as you want.
we have 492 people watching right now, and um, I, I don't put a timeline on it, but I am respectful of your time, and people can leave as they want. To me, and I say this in my customer service management terms as well. As long as we're not talking about the cat, then the conversation can continue. What does that mean?
Then let's keep going. I don't know
You,
any cats
well,
personally.
I've walked past my team, right? And they're like, oh, I love cats too. And I'm like, okay, this conversation needs to stop because now you're no longer talking about helping her. But if it's taking an hour to help her as long as you need. But at this point, y'all are talking about cats and the color yellow. No, wrap it up. Um, but as long as we are helping people, and I think that we are, see their lives differently and see the struggle that I'm having
Yeah.
and how I need to come and even while I'm speaking to you, need to hear Martin in my head say pause.
Yeah.
And I can look at your eyes now and tell when I'm supposed to shut up.
Can you? Oh, that's good.
Yes.
That's good. It's
Yes, I
like a
could tell.
non-verbal cue.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I bring to communication coaching is ultimately what I do is to help people see the habits and the traits that they don't realize they have, and to be able to help them understand how others perceive those. So now this is an interesting thing. The Bill that I'm chatting to now, I love to pieces, but I
Oh,
wouldn't go into a job. Yes, you're welcome. I wouldn't go into a job interview with my hat on backwards. But what
oh,
actually occurred to me as well is I wonder if the headphones are also detrimental in a job interview context. Now, I don't know if your job interviews were in person or if they were actually via Zoom.
I've only done one with these on.
Mhm.
And I can tell you this. Why do I like them? Do you have headsets?
Yes, I do indeed, but I am using
Your
I'm using a
Apple.
mic, as you can see, but I'm just using my computer screen speakers to me because the reason I like computer screen speakers is that it sounds like the sound is coming from where I'm looking. It sounds like the sound is coming from the camera, so I'm more
Okay.
inclined to talk to the person on the camera. But what headphones do is that they almost make you look like a not you personally. I think this is just an interesting observation because I've watched this in myself as well. One looks like a performer if your presence is erring on the side of performance, then it enhances that perception in the mind of your audience.
So yeah, just one time. Normally I'll have on my AirPods.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and the reason why I'll tell you guys this out there, I like my headset is because I can actually hear what I'm saying in real time,
Mhm.
and I can hear what you're saying much better.
Yeah,
So
of course. Of
um,
course.
I'm not deaf by any means, but people do come to my house and they're like, "Why is your television so loud?" So everything that I watch is usually like above the 50 mark, and people are like, "Oh my god!" And it's like, "What? It's nothing to me." So it does help me understand better, but I don't think I will wear them in interview in a Zoom
Yeah.
interview again.
Again, this is a tricky thing because it's about perception. Now, this came home to me in a really awkward way recently. I lost a friend. We'd been friends for 25 years. And she stopped talking to me. She ghosted me. And I got to a point where I realized she wasn't coming back. We weren't friends anymore. We were done effectively. And I couldn't understand, because I thought about, through all of our history, what were the things that I'd said to her that she took such offense at? Why did she leave? And then I realized that perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
Her perception of what I'd said was not my intention. It was not the way I had hoped she would perceive me. But for her, it was 100% reality. And when I could sit on the other side and go, wow, if I had heard what I'd said to her the way she did, yeah, I totally understand her behavior. And you know what? A little bit of respect there. Because clearly I had made her feel bad. I'm not the kind of person who goes out of my way to make people feel bad, but sometimes it happens. And in that instance, her perception was her reality, and nothing could change that. And I realized that's okay, because we're meant to go down different paths. But it is an important lesson when you're standing in front of anyone in any communication context. Their perception is their reality, which is part of the weird brain warping thing you've got to think about with communication. It's not about you. No one cares about you. No one cares about the words that you say. No one cares about how you say it. They care about themselves. So I gather from the conversations I've had with Bill that his intention is to serve people, to make a difference, to create an organization where people want to come to work, to think cleverly, to save money, to improve things. But perception is reality, which means if the person sitting on the other side of the interview table from him goes, oh, well, you want to make me out to get rid of my job, or you want to make me an idiot, their perception is that Bill is a threat.
That. So again, that goes back to, who do they want to show up? How do I walk into a room? This is I don't want you to answer the question, but how do I walk into a room without making someone feel like a threat? That's not on me.
It's not on you.
It's not.
It's
And
not on you.
and I've spent more time than I can tell you trying to shrink myself
Yeah.
as opposed to really selling, like, oh my God, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this and I've done this.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God, when I was in Bangkok, like, I love what I've done. I've enjoyed every moment of my career, every moment, because each moment has been learning and growth and change. And then when I'm no longer growing, that's when I hand over the keys to the person that I've been kind of guiding into
Mhm.
my chair and say to the founders, I'm done. I'm going here. And I think that Gerardo's ready for my role.
And that is
And
true leadership.
and the founders have always said to me how much they appreciate it, because not only am I not going to be left being um, handcuffed to one person. Only person to
Mhm.
only person to know that job is this person. I'm not going to let that happen, and I'm not going to let me be that person.
I
So
think
I'm
it's
going to give everything to you
I
so that
think it's
you can run.
relevant to call out what Sean O'Neill said. Your idea of cross training is a type of backfill management via succession training or succession
Mhm.
management. He's absolutely right.
It's
It
the
is
whole point.
wise. It is the product of many years of experience. It is the product of deep thought. It is also the product of a management style that is allowing people to grow and allowing the organization to grow. Bill, can we be a little bit blunt here, because this is what I do, right? I ask people uncomfortable questions. Yes, yes, yes. Can
Blunt
we
with
build it
me?
in here?
Blunt with
Yes,
me?
yes,
Oh, geez.
yes.
Okay, but let me get this out
No,
first. Okay, before
gotta ask
before
you
you're
the
blunt,
question.
huh?
Why do you think your last interview went wrong?
So the last
Interview.
interview
Yes.
was a pre-recorded interview with Scott.
No, not interview as in interviewing people. I'm talking about the job interview that scared you so much.
Um, it was Scott that scared me so much
Ah, okay.
because
Okay.
and I'll tell you why. It wasn't because of Scott. Scott and I are friends, guys. We're all a part of the same network. But when Scott stopped his recording after 2 tries, and he's my friend or part of my network, I said, I'm not bringing something. And I bet what he's seeing is what other people have seen on Zoom interviews.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So that's how everything kind of came up. And then that's when and the next day, I saw Scott. And you guys, I am authentically me. So in that moment, I was just like, I need to ask a question, guys, because I'm really feeling it. And I wanted to know, what am I doing wrong? So I spoke to Scott. And Scott said, you didn't seem like your authentic self. You
Mm.
seem like a version of you. And when you're answering the questions, you're answering them in a way that seemed like you weren't really feeling it. You were just saying words. And so that's really what I wanted to get.
Okay.
And so I've had a few interviews, and the last 2 that I had, there was no. Are you looking at the time?
No, not at all.
The last 2. Tell me if when you are. The last 2 that I had, I don't think that there was a better candidate.
Okay.
And I received in the last 2 that I had, very weird feelings during the interview, and
Okay.
and I'll share it with you. So, one was a fantastic Zoom interview with the hiring manager, and then when I came in, it was with the hiring manager and the people that would be reporting into me,
Mhm.
and for purposes, we're keeping all names private. We're not talking about companies, but the hiring manager was on her cell phone the whole time.
Weird.
So so I'm
Weird.
sitting there, and there's 4 people in the room. 3 are reporting into me, and then 1 I'm going to reporting into. And um, then I do have a problem, which is when things pop in my head, I say them. So she yawned, and I said, "Am I boring you?" But I said it. I think I'm funny, right? But maybe it's not when you're like the hiring manager.
Oh,
But
I don't know. Look, you can look at your behavior and critique it as much as you want, but at the end of the day, just because you're the best person for the job, it doesn't mean that there is someone else out there who is perhaps less perfect, but actually more comfortable for them. And this is the real challenge. At the senior levels, you're not competing for another job, and there are going to be lots and lots of people who want exactly the same job as you do. You can only control what you can control. You control the homework you do beforehand. You can control your depth of understanding of the people in the room with you. You can control how much or how little you say. You can control your attitude. You can control your responses to a certain extent. And if you can't control that response, then you can learn how to be observant of what's going on in your brain and then deciding whether it's time for you to shift and change your
so
behavior.
I want to ask Kinga. So I agree that not everyone's a fit for a job. But my question is, when you drive an hour to go to an interview, and you're the candidate, and the executive over the department is not giving you eye contact, and they're on their cell phone, then and that started from the minute I walked into the interview. What does that say? How does it mean I'm not the right fit? It's
tells me
confusing.
that the organization had no intention of hiring you, because if they were in the room and their behavior was such that they didn't really care, then look, the fact of the matter is, Bill, they don't care if you have to drive an hour or 5 to go to
Right.
the interview, because it's not about you, it's about them. In that context, if the body language is already telling you that they're not interested, you have 2 choices. You can say,
that's what I was
is
getting.
everything okay with you? Let's say her name is Donna, right? Donna, I see that you're on your phone a lot. Is everything okay? Is there somewhere else that you need to be right now? Donna goes, no, sorry. She puts it down. Or she actually goes, you know what? Yes, there is. And I'm sorry, I need to leave this room. And then all of a sudden the dynamics change.
Yeah.
This is an interesting point. I was chatting with some clients I'm coaching based out of Europe at the moment last week. And they had an incredibly successful event, a 10-year anniversary celebration of their organization. And at that time, they had very, very poor sound quality. And so the CEO, who had rehearsed and was really celebrating his people, and everyone deserved to hear the amazing things he had to say, was totally hamstrung by the fact that the technology let them down. But you know what happened after that? His employees could not hear what he was saying when he was standing up on stage, but they knew how pure his intention was, and they knew what a leader he was. And as he stepped off the stage, they started chanting his name. And when I saw the recording, all I could see was what had happened on the stage. I did not see that moment of pure celebration. And that changed everything for me. And this is the point, that in any context, whether it's on a presentation or a performance or in a job interview, we don't know what happens before and we don't know what happens afterwards. All we can do is address the elephant in the room at the time. So in their context, if they had stopped and said, wait, hang on, there's something wrong with the sound. We're going to pause for a second and get the sound right. The audience would have been able to hear what he had to say. But at the end of the day, he didn't see this event as a failure, because he knew that it didn't matter if they hadn't heard his words exactly. They got the vibe, and he got it right back.
Right. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have here? Trying to match. She wasn't self-aware enough to tell you she had an emergency, if that was the case. I agree with you, Kinga. And what I found out later was that they had put the position on hold. So my question, my question is, and it really wasn't a question to mention, right? But did they find out right before I walked in? So that's why everyone was kind of like, okay, we already got him in, so let's just let him sit and talk for an hour, because, or
to
they
a certain extent, they have to do that because it's kind of following through. And would you have felt better or worse going to an interview where people actually had, just blown you off? I don't know. Look, we can't comment on the nature of that, but we can comment on what to do moving forward. And this is really where we're looking, is that you're here because you want to identify what is it in your communication behavior that is becoming a detriment. And I think, Bill, from what I see here and now, that moment of, why did everything go so wrong? Why did everything go so wrong with Scott when we were talking? Why did he go, okay, mate, let's stop this interview? It was a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
If it continues, if it happens again and again, then it starts becoming a pattern. What happens then is that the reaction that you have to that pattern is what you anticipate, and therefore you're going to give the same reaction again and again and again. What you're doing, which is incredibly brave and strong and vulnerable, is saying, I observed this. I don't want this to happen again. How can I change the nature of my behavior so that we can move forward? Which to me tells me it aligns with your leadership style. It aligns with your ability to manage an organization and to make change happen. As simple as that.
Great.
So do we have any more questions from people?
Do we have other questions?
I'd love to.
Well, Sean here, I think I agree with him. But I think you're going to say, but we don't know what was going on behind the scenes, which
Look,
is,
I can't. We can't speculate
yeah,
on what happens in an organization. I don't think Sean is wrong, but I think King has got a good point. Follow up, yes, etc. We've gone down this rabbit warren of
yeah,
interviews, which is not a bad thing, and it's where we wanted to go because we wanted to address what's the elephant in the room here. But I'd like to go back to a question that David Selwood asked way back in this, and I think it's a nice way of kind of rounding out what we're talking about. He said, "What's the most common mistake leaders make when speaking?" And I think it honestly is the curse of knowledge. Are you familiar with the concept of the curse of knowledge?
I am not.
Okay, let me explain. Have you ever been in a room where someone's really excited about what they're talking about, but you have no idea what they're saying?
Yes.
Okay, that is because they have the curse of knowledge. They know stuff. They assume that everyone else knows that stuff, but they can't unknow what they know. And so what ends up happening is, and this is a really good lesson to anyone, do not ever use a 3-letter acronym or a TLA when you're presenting, because you never know who is not going to understand. Now, we understand the CEO, we understand KPIs, we understand profit and P&L, probably,
Yeah.
right? These are commonly bantered acronyms in a senior context. But you don't know who is there. So P&L is profit and loss. CEO is chief executive officer. What was the other one I used? KPIs, key performance indicators. And ironically, these terminologies that you'd think are fairly common across business actually vary widely, like redundancy, as we talked about earlier today, and also from industry to industry. So
Right.
the lesson I'd say here is, first of all, check your KPIs, check your TLAs at the door. Don't bring in assumptions into a context. Nice one, Kinga. But also realize that there is value in getting to the point of what you're trying to say. So I tend to deal with two types of leaders. Type of leader one, who has all of the knowledge and all of the authority and the gift of the gab, but who struggles to come to the point and who struggles to stick to time. And leader number two, who has the knowledge and the presence of mind, but not necessarily the charisma. Now, the irony is that it's actually easier to get the leaders who have the preparation to share their charisma, to become more serious, to become more credible or more authoritative, to perform and to present, than it is to get the leader who is naturally charismatic to slow down, to spend the time to think about themselves, and to then balance that slowness with their ability to be themselves. That's a huge challenge. But it is possible. What it requires is to realize that the skills that they've relied on their whole lives, which is doing it quickly, doing it effectively, and kind of winging it until their structures catch up with them, has to be completely overhauled. And it is much harder to break the habit of being charismatic and underprepared than it is to break the habit of being overprepared and under-charismatic. So
Understood.
that's the lesson. What's the biggest mistake that leaders make? They assume that everyone else knows what they know. And you break that by realizing that you need to understand that nugget, that essence of what you're saying. Think of it this way. If people could walk away from your communications and understand what is the one key point, if I could take nothing else away from this, then this one key point, what would it be? So I'm going to challenge you, Bill.
No.
If people could take nothing else away from our chat here today, what is the one key point that you would like to leave them with?
Leave them with
Yeah, your audience. People
our
listening
audience.
today. Absolutely.
Oh my God. You're never too old to learn, and never be too prideful to say I don't understand. That's what those are two takeaways. And I'm gonna
I
pause.
love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for pausing, and thank you for taking the time to acknowledge that this is your lesson, but it's also lessons for the people here today.
Absolutely. You know,
My Go ahead.
one of the things that I do, which Michael will tell you, is I normally stop people and I say, "All right, I'm stupid. What's an LLM?" You know, because some people they just speak in acronyms, and I wrote an entire article about it. Like, it's so unfair because half the people don't know what you're talking about, but they're sitting in the meeting, so they're lost. And so
Mm.
I'll always be that guy that says,
Yeah.
"Excuse me, but what does an LLM mean, or what does in this case, what does redundant mean?"
Yeah, I'm
Because
really glad you did. I'm
because it
sorry you
can mean,
didn't stop me sooner.
yeah, it can mean something to something different to everyone. So
Exactly.
yeah, let's clarify. Um, and that's why no question is stupid in my book. Unless you've asked the same question, well, even then, I mean, it's a learning phase. You'll get used to it. There's 100 things coming in. But yeah, I always like to play the dumb card and say, I don't understand. So can you explain it for me?
Yeah,
Knowing
same
that
here.
other people may not
I've done that
understand.
as well.
This has been
That's a really good
phenomenal.
point. Yes, if you can explain it well, either you don't. If you can't explain it well, I'm assuming Mike meant to say either you don't know it or you need to learn how to communicate it. Yes, that's true. I think often we get to a point in our lives where we have such domain expertise that it's kind of hard to pick it apart and go back to basics. This is part of what I love about communication is I am always learning and understanding can I how can I understand what's really going on? And I'll leave you, if I may, with this concept of communication. We think that when we speak, our words go straight into someone else's ears and they hear exactly what we said. And as we've heard from Kinga, lovely key takeaway there, perception is reality, which means what comes into someone else's ears is what comes into their ears. And then there's this brilliant machine, this big brain inside our heads that translates perception into reality. It goes through all of the filters of all of our lives. What's our previous experience? What's our previous understanding of the way the world treats us? What are our knowledge of what is acceptable in society and what isn't? And this means that before a message can be acted on, it is parsed through all of these levels of knowledge so that what we end up with may be completely unrelated to what people said. And I'm not talking here about that children's game of what's it called? Broken whispers, careless whispers, broken telephone. I don't know if you
Yeah.
ever played as a kid where you would whisper something into someone's ear and you'd go around a circle, and by the time it came back, the thing that you said had no resemblance to the thing that the person at the other end of the broken telephone said. Now that happens, but that happens mostly because of noise and the transmission of noise. What I'm talking about is the noise inside our heads. And so the next time you're talking to someone, be observant of their body language and their reactions, and be aware that if what you're saying to them is not landing, stop, think, and say, Bill, are we running out of time? Because I'm seeing that your body language is going, it's time to wrap it up.
No. I'm actually asking Peter to come up, Peter Muffler, on stage for a second. I would love for him to come up so that I can duck out for 20 seconds and then come back.
All righty then. So
Uh, we don't need to talk about why I need to duck out, but just gonna bring someone else up on stage just to kind
okay.
of give you someone to talk to. Then we'll do the closeout. Um, but I might not make it to
I'm
the closeout.
I'm very happy to have a conversation, or I can hold the fort on my own if you'd like
There
to.
you go, ladies and
All right.
gentlemen. While I step away, Miss Gina Ballerin.
Thank you. Thank you. So you've got me here, which is ironic because I'm on the UBU live show, which is not my show, but I'm here to answer any questions that you have about communication, leadership communication, improving your communication skills. But while we do this, I want to acknowledge Mike's excellent comments. His last comment: seek first to be understood, then to understand. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. But damn it, to be understood by them. And so I think your point here is we can never know exactly what goes on inside someone's head. All we can do is observe their reactions and hope that what we're seeing is an honest reflection of what's going on in their heads. This is an important lesson for any communicator. If you have a really important message to get across to people, just think to yourself, what can I say in multiple different ways that will allow me to optimize the impact that I'm going to make? And for some people, it means putting the implication of what you want to say into a context that they understand. So it's difficult when you've got a huge audience. You've got to look at what do we have in common and then play to that. Storytelling is often most impactful when you can use a story that people can resonate with, that they can identify with. But in a leadership context, storytelling is most important when you can help people understand, how does this impact their world? How can they make a difference? And how can their attitude or behavior positively impact? Hello, who's this we've got online there?
Hello. Bill wanted me to come up, so I'm here to find out why.
You can leave now. I had to take a run, and then you're one of my besties, so I was like, come up real quick and take my place. But Gina was nice enough to say, just go. The problem with live TV is that on normal networks, they have commercial breaks, and then you can run and come back. But everyone, this is proof that having a good network on LinkedIn means that you have a great network. And I just sent Peter a message saying, I need help. And he came up. So thanks, Peter.
Hi,
welcome.
Peter. We're talking about leadership communication today and how to improve your communication skills. So I'm really going to put you on the spot here.
Uh-oh.
Is there anything you'd like to share or ask about how to improve communication skills?
I mean, I think the comments said a lot of good things that I would have said. So, like Bill, I've been in a management position myself. So it's bad. I mean, we've kind of talked about this already, where it's bad to assume things. And it's funny how we were talking about acronyms before. I hate acronyms because, like, so I'm a recruiter. So if I say ATS to a recruiter, they know what that means. Whereas I talk to a non-recruiter, they may not know, or maybe some common knowledge might say that you do know, but not everything that you think is common is common. So I think explaining yourself and communicating all your points as if you've never talked to somebody before isn't a bad idea, because whenever I've interacted with any individuals in any number of levels, it's funny to see how far communication gaps can be, because either you or them are not asking basic questions to just get good old clarifying points to, like, say, for instance, like on the recruiting side, for instance, people won't do it always to me, but whenever, like I'm in the interview process myself, and recruiters will say, I'll give you a call at 3. And so, okay, so my initial thought process is 3 o'clock. I'm in Central Time, but this recruiter could be on the East Coast, could be on the West Coast. So I
Yeah.
also got the thing in my brain that they might actually call me at 2 or 3 o'clock Eastern or 3 o'clock Pacific.
Absolutely.
So that having those clarifying points is very important to do.
And by the way, I had to Google ATS. I was like, I know that's out there somewhere.
Yeah. There you go.
Applicant tracking system.
Yeah,
Yes.
applicant tracking
But I had to look this up and go, what?
Yeah.
I think there was a cycling brand in my past, and I was like, ATS, is that the name of a bike brand?
I think there was.
Yeah.
It's great having people like Peter and people like you, Gina, in my network. I think we're gonna wrap it up, guys. Are there any billion-dollar questions out there?
Can you give me?
And Jeremy, why is Peter in trouble? What'd you say? So I want to thank Gina for being on the show. Gina, where can people meet you? How can they get a hold of you?
Guys, I'm on LinkedIn, and you might think that you can't connect with me, but you can. The only difference is that instead of just doing the one-click invite to connect, you have to go click on the drop-down menu and then look for the other option to invite me to connect. And I would say, please do. Please do, but tell me why. I mean, I know I respect that some people cannot send comments when they apply. It's just the nature of LinkedIn these days. But if you can, please do. And if you can't, hopefully I'll see that you're connected with Bill. My perspective is to make a difference in the world, but I do that by helping people understand what they say and how they appear to the world. And if I can leave you with this thought, it is, yes, you be you, but also just realize how you want to show up and how you are perceived when you do that, because they're not always the same thing. And sometimes you need people in your life who can see the true sparkle in you. And that's always me.
Wow. That was profound. One thing I want everyone to take away from this conversation is something that you said and something that I do, which is clarifying questions. And a lot of times when I'm going back and forth with my team, I'll ask them, what did you hear me say? And it's so interesting that you brought that up, because I learned a long time ago in the middle of an argument or disagreement, it wasn't an argument, to ask that question. Because the person was getting so up in arms about it, and I couldn't figure out why. And when I said, what did you hear me say? I recognized that there was a term that I used that in their home was a negative connotation. And I was like, no, no, that's not what I meant by any means. And so asking those clarifying questions, especially when you can feel that you guys aren't connecting for some reason, don't just let it go. Ask that clarifying question, and you will learn so much about how to communicate with somebody else. We need to meet people where they are, not where we expect them to be. And so all of us go through our lives down different paths, and we see things through a different lens. I tell you guys all the time, I love my brother, Philip. I have another brother, Justin. Don't like him very much, but don't egg me on. Stop it. I love Justin, but Philip and I are so different, and we grew up in the same house, but we view our childhoods 100% differently. You know, our heroes in our family. His hero to me was a villain. You know, we just saw things through different lenses. And once we recognize that we need to meet people where they are, our lives become easier. It's also easy for me to give other people great advice on how to clean up their life when I need to get my own house in order. So I recognize that too. It's easier to see someone else's. When you're in it, it's harder. So I want everyone to walk away from this today feeling as if none of us have all the answers. None of us are the experts on everything. That we are all works in progress, as long as we seek out the truth and we seek out the intention to evolve and be better tomorrow than we were today, and be better today than we were yesterday, then we're making a difference. I wish everyone hope, love, and joy. And can you hang on, Gina, while we do our out music? This is the music I wanted to play. It's more.
You'll have me dancing in my seat, I anticipate.
It will have you dancing in your seat. This is the Dang Gina song. So.
Right.
All right, bye guys. Everyone have a great week.
Thanks everyone for being
Peter,
online.
are you going to stay? You can stay if you want. Bye guys.
I'll hang out.
You want to? Oh, good. We'll see you dance to the music.
Ladies and gentlemen, you, Livey, is proud to to present the powerhouse, the storyteller, the voice that commands the room. Gina! Hey Gina! Hey Gina! Hey Gina! Iconic, unstoppable, queen of the earth. Hey Gina! Hey Gina! Hey Gina! Speaking her truth, can't nobody come between us. She's the CEO's voice, make your message ignite. Takes your story to the stage, turns your words into light. From boardrooms to TEDx, she's raising the bar. Gina Valorant, powerhouse superstar. Beats drop harder, chest louder. Dang Gina, dang Gina, dang Gina. She's got the wisdom, the fire, the demeanor. Dang Gina, dang Gina, dang Gina. When she steps on the mic, ain't nobody meaner. What, Gina? What, Gina?
Yeah, red chef. She the voice in the storm, the calm in the fight. Dropping jewels on the mic, make the message ignite. Global stage queen, she don't need no rehearsal. Flipping facts in the fire, making stories universal. Step aside, let her shine. Yeah, the moment is hers. From the crowd to the boardroom, she commands the word. What?